Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm refilming a video that I filmed yesterday. I thought I would do a very simple, nice New Year's video of just the best books that I read last year, because I read 67 books last year, which is the most I have ever read in one year, and I was very pleased with myself. There were majority good books that I read. I think I only read maybe 5 of that 67 that weren't great. I thought I would just pick the 10 best books of that 67. There's no ranking, no scoreboard. I'm just going roughly chronologically through everything that I think deserves a top 10 position that I read in the last year. Also, I do need to briefly acknowledge, yes, my hair is significantly shorter than it was in the last video. I gave myself a bit of an at-home haircut a couple of days ago because I was scheduled to have a haircut this Friday, and then Bojo announced the third national lockdown on Monday, so thanks for that, buddy. It's not too bad, I'm pretty happy with it, but yeah, new haircut. So the first book on this list is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This I have picked in part because of the fond memories I have of reading it, because I read it in about February of last year, before lockdown happened, before the world went absolutely tits up, so I have fond memories of being sat in my local library, hunched over it. Very bad posture, got a lot of backache from it, but absolutely tearing into it. The Secret History was the first dark academia book I ever got stuck into, and so I felt like it deserved a place on this list, not because I objectively think that it's a good book or that I really like it, but just because it was the start of my dark academia reading, and I did enjoy it enough. The Secret History is told from the perspective of Richard, who was a freshman at a Vermont college, and who joined the classics classroom with only 4 other students, and it is about how he and his classmates came to murder one of their fellow students, a guy named Bunny, and it is about the circumstances of his death, about philosophy and classics, and generally about the consequences on his psyche and of the psyche of his classmates following this murder. It is about 500 pages long, it is a chunky book, and yet it only took me about 3 days to read it because it was just so engrossing. Again, I don't know how much I actually liked it, and I go into that more in my video talking about If We Were Villains that I posted a couple of months back, so check that out if you want to hear my thoughts about The Secret History and also If We Were Villains. But I think it does a lot of really interesting things, and I think it's certainly an interesting book. However, it is not without its flaws and its general pretentiousness, so, you know, I thought it was a good cornerstone book of this year, but yeah, I think that's basically all I have to say about it till I do a reread. I did read it twice this year as well, which I found interesting about myself. I don't know what it says about me, but I read this book twice. Book 2 on my list is actually the first book of a trilogy that I read when lockdown had just started, and I decided, you know what I'm going to do with all this time? I'm just going to read some series, because I finally have the time to do so. And so I read Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I had read the first book, Scythe, in 2019 and thought it was excellent, and so asked for the following 2 books, which are Thunderhead and The Toll, for Christmas, and I received those, and so I sat down and did a full reading of the series across 3 days. I read 1 book each day. Oh boy, that last book is nearly 600 pages, and so I sat and read for a solid maybe 7 or 8 hours that day, and was just a mess the whole time. Scythe is the story of society at an undisclosed point in the future where science has progressed to a point at which humans no longer die. We live in essentially a utopian society where you can do whatever you want, you live forever, if you're unhealthy you can get cured almost instantly, and yet in order to control the human population there is a division of people known as Scythes who are tasked with keeping the human population at a reasonable level and so have to kill people. And it follows 2 young people called Citra and Rowan as they are chosen to become Scythes, and what it is like to be a Scythe in the society, and about the broader implications of having the Scythedom in this utopian society. So Scythe follows them being initiated into their roles, and also explores a little bit of the politics within the Scythedom, because they are a division above normal humans, and so they have very different rules. And then the following 2 books show much darker sides of the Scythedom, and we are introduced to the one religion that has survived in this society where humans have conquered death, and we are introduced to the concept of what if it all goes wrong? What if this isn't the answer to everything? And The Thunderhead has the most awful ending. I was a mess reading it. Not awful in that it's badly written, just in that it absolutely devastated me, and it forced me to read The Toll the next day because I just went, oh my god, I have to know that things are okay after this. And I thought it was just excellently written YA sci-fi, and it threw up such interesting moral questions, which is something you so rarely see in YA sci-fi, YA fantasy, and I thought it was a credit to its genres, and thoroughly enjoyed it. I still think about it a lot. It is a really, really good series, and one that I will definitely reread at some point. Book 3 on this list is one that I read during the reading rush in July, and that is Yes, No, Maybe So by Becky Albertalli and Aisha Saeed. This you will know about if you watched my reading rush video, because I talked about it a bit then. Essentially, it is a YA romance about a Jewish guy named Jamie and a Muslim girl named Maya, and as they go canvassing for the Democrat political party in their state, they form a friendship and slowly fall in love, and I thought it was a beautiful romance that had such interesting things to say about young people and their involvement in politics, about religion, inclusivity, diversity, acceptance, and I just adored it. It was such a sweet, propulsive book. I could not stop reading it because it was just so inviting and warm, and I think if you're looking for something that is quite socially and politically aware but that also just features a really cute romance, I would highly recommend it. Book 4 is another one that I read during the reading rush, and that is As I Descended by Robin Talley. This is a retelling of Macbeth, but it is set in a modern day high school, and Lord and Lady Macbeth are instead a lesbian couple called Maria and Lily, and it is about them attempting to win a scholarship so that they can go to university together, and in the process having to eliminate a fellow student from the running. I thought it was just perfectly done. It nails all the topics and themes that you get in Macbeth, the traditional Shakespeare play, but bringing it into a modern context so that those themes can really shine again in this new context. It also covers Mexican folklore, and Maria, I believe it is, has a disability, so it is a much more inclusive and diverse retelling, but that still manages to bring those themes into a more digestible world where it still seems so incredibly relevant to the people who read it. I thought it was excellently done. The Shakespeare references themselves were just incredible. The naming of the characters, the naming of the school, the scholarship that Maria and Lily are going up for, all the rest of it, I just adored. And the cover I am just obsessed with. I absolutely love it. Book 5 is not technically something that I read in 2020. I have read this book before, however I think I severely underrated it the previous times I have read it. I am talking about Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wein. This is a historical YA book, and I've read it twice before, I think, but neither time did I give it much credit, and so when I reread it this time I was gobsmacked by how incredible I thought it was. This is the story of two Scottish girls named Verity and Maddie, who are working for the Allied forces. Maddie as a pilot for the Allied Air Forces and Verity as a spy. And it follows initially Verity once she has been captured by Nazis in occupied France and is being forced to write out her role in the Allied forces so that the information can be used by the Nazis, and so the first section of the book is literally what she is writing for her Nazi captors, and there is a lot of conversation with her and the people who have imprisoned her, in particular the translator, and that was just devastating to read because at the midpoint of the book it switches to Maddie, who is now in France trying to find Verity, and she is writing out what it is like searching for her and everything that Verity has just talked about with her training in Scotland, with them meeting and becoming friends, but from her perspective. And There are some phenomenal plot twists in this. Plot twists that I had no idea were coming even from my memory of the book, and the ending is just absolutely gut-wrenching. I cried for about half an hour because it was just so emotional, but I think it is phenomenally written. You have two such incredible badass characters in Verity and Maddie, and I would highly recommend it for, I think, one of the best wartime stories, because it is just so original in that plot twisty dual narrative perspective. And I'm definitely going to reread this one at some point this year, because I can't believe I wasn't giving it enough credit before, because this is just phenomenal. Book 6 is the sequel to a book that I have read previously, but that I did a reread of and then began the sequel for the first time of, and that is Fierce Fragile Hearts by Sarah Bernard. This is the sequel to Beautiful Broken Things, and it follows Suzanne, who had previously been a secondary character in the first book, but now we see everything from her perspective instead. Beautiful Broken Things follows Caddy and Rosie and Suzanne during their GCSE year at school. Caddy is scared that her best friend since childhood, Rosie, is beginning to like her new friend Suzanne more than her, and so throughout the course of the book, Caddy learns that her jealousy over Rosie and Suzanne is misplaced, and learns a lot about who Suzanne really is. And so Fierce Fragile Hearts picks up 2 years on, once the girls have finished school. Caddy and Rosie are going to university, and Suzanne is behind in every sense of the word. She has been in a rehab mental health facility since the end of the last book, and so she is now trying to navigate young adult life, living on her own, working a minimum wage job, and navigating what life is like for her now without her friends. And I thought it was such a brutally honest look at female friendship, mental health, survival, and young adult life, because I am now of the age that Suzanne is in this book. My friends are all at university or at home doing online university now, and I am not. I'm on a gap year, and it was very realistic from my brief experiences. Obviously I haven't been through what Suzanne has been through, but I still thought it was just an excellent book, and it hurt my feelings in the best way, and I would highly recommend it if you want some realistic YA fiction that talks about mental illness and survival and trauma. I think Beautiful Broken Things does the better job at looking at that, but that this gets the sort of new adult perspective of growing up much better. Beautiful Broken Things is one of those books that I can't read very much because it hits so close to home in terms of seeing your friends go through something difficult, but this one was better at hitting that dead on what it's like for the person to experience it. But like it a lot, hurts my feelings, would recommend. Book 7 is a book that I read towards the end of the summer. This was following the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter protests, and I was really on a kick to try and make sure that I was reading diversely, because I had noticed how Caucasian my shelves were looking, and so as part of a big batch of Own Voices black fiction that I had bought, I picked up Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is a book told in verse with illustrations, so it took me only about an hour to read it, but my god was that hour some of the most eye-opening reading I ever did. This is the story of Will, a black boy who lives in a black neighbourhood, and he has just found out that his brother has been killed in an act of gang violence. And so, in the words of the blurb, if someone you love gets killed, find the person who killed them and kill them. No crying, no snitching, get revenge. And so Will gets the gun that he knows is kept in his older brother's chest of drawers, and he climbs in the lift to go and find the guy who killed his brother and get revenge. But on the way down, he meets ghosts of his past and is forced to confront the cyclical nature of gang violence and question the choice over getting revenge, and really think about if this is what he wants to do. It was so compelling in the way that the discussion was had through Will's visions, I suppose, of these people that were once in his life but no longer are due to the gang violence and gang culture that he lives around. And the ending of the book is a brutal cliffhanger, and it got me. I was harrowed in a good way. I don't think this is a particularly difficult book to read in terms of trigger warnings. I would suggest you check that out though. I can't really remember how graphic it gets, but of course there is mention of gun violence, gang violence, racism, all that kind of thing, so do take care with that. But generally I just thought this was so excellently written and such a compelling narrative that I will definitely be rereading it a lot, because it is short, to the point, beautifully executed, and says so much in so few words. Book 8 on this list is one that no one will be surprised to see is on the best books that I read last year. Loveless by Alice Oseman. Round of applause. Thank you. You know what I think about this book, you know what this book is about. I did a long crying video back when I first read it because I was so emotional about it. It is the story of Georgia War as she goes to university and starts to realise that she may be aromantic asexual. And it is the story of her re-evaluating her friendships, re-evaluating her views on life and love and sex and relationships, and about the self-acceptance journey that she goes on. It blew my mind with how accurately it could portray the experience that I and so many other Arrowace people have had. The characters were beautiful, it was beautifully written, the friendships stay in my heart. I adore this book. Please read it. I don't know how else I can sell it to you, but just this is in like the top 5 books I've read ever. And I've read a lot of books. But yeah, Loveless by Alice Oseman. We love to see it. Book 9 on this list is yet another one that I have talked about in previous videos, because we are now at the point in the year where I was making more regular YouTube videos, and so if I read something good I would just talk about it straight away. So again, I will not say much. With The Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, it is the story of Imoni, a teenage girl who really wants to be a chef, and it is about the year of her life in which she takes a culinary arts course at her school while she is trying to raise her young daughter, while she is trying to navigate her relationship with her daughter's father, with her culture, with her grandmother, with her estranged father, and about the relationships and friendships and experiences that she has as a teen mother, as the sole provider for her family, and as a woman. And I thought it was beautifully written, super engaging. I just adored Imoni's character, and I would highly recommend it again for some more diverse fiction and for just a really interesting look at teen motherhood, I thought. I think I mentioned this in the video in which I talk about it, but teen pregnancy is fairly well covered in YA, but this is the first book I've ever read where you actually see the girl who made the choice to keep the baby and what life is like for her now she is dealing with being a teen mother and actually having a child. Imoni's daughter is about 2 years old in this book, so she is trying to raise a toddler at the same time that she is trying to work out if college is an option for her, should she even want to do it, and I just thought this book was excellent and I highly, highly recommend it. And then finally, of the top 10 books that I read, If We Were Villains by ML Rio. Again, I already made a video about this, talking about the secret history as well. This is the story of Oliver, who was a drama student at a liberal arts college about 10 years before this book is set, who was convicted of the murder of one of his classmates, and the book begins once he has been released from jail, and when the detective who helped put him away comes back to him and says, "I don't think you did it, but I need to know the answers. Tell me what really happened." And so Oliver walks him through the year that transpired in which one of his classmates died. However, what it does differently to The Secret History is that you don't know who it is that dies, and you don't know the circumstances or who did it until the very end. And I thought this book just did so much better than The Secret History at covering the same topics that they both share. It is with drama students who study purely Shakespeare and Shakespearean theatre rather than classicists, so right up my alley. I thought this was just spectacularly written. I was super engaged with the characters, with the descriptions of the performances they do, which loved it. Yeah, this is one that I will definitely reread pretty frequently because I loved it. And there we go. Those were the top 10 of the 67 books that I read last year. There are videos that I have made already about a number of them, so they will be linked somewhere for you to check them out if you want to see my more in-depth thoughts about a lot of them. I had a very solid year of reading last year. For all the faults of 2020, the one thing I cannot complain about is just how much I was able to read. So thank you for being on my journey of reading with me for those last months of 2020, and I am looking forward to reading many more good books in 2021. Please like this video if you liked it, comment down below what the best things you read in 2020 were. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more of my bookish content. Oh, I also now have an Instagram, which it will be linked below with my story graph and with my coffee page and those kinds of things. It is at I do be reading though, so go follow that if you want to see more sort of mini reviews of things as and when I read them. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time. It was the first... Stop it. Ugh, this ring light is excellent for making me look nicer, however it gives me such a headache staring at it. Holding books makes your hands hurt. And to say nothing of trying to hold a stack of 10 books for the thumbnail as well, because I am a midget. I am 5'2" and very weak.